Hi, Connect Empowerment. We are here with Erin. Erin works at Trader Joe's and is all things awesome. She also uh, tutors my wife in ASL, or American Sign Language, so interpreting, and just an awesome, awesome lady. So Erin, we just thank you for joining us and wanted you to share your stories about what you have gone through recently, or tell us your whole life story. We can't wait to hear from you.
Um, well, I grew up in California with a white mom. Didn't really grow up much with my dad, and that had nothing to do with like what people would think is a stereotype of the black dad leaving. It was just more complicated than that. So I ended up growing up with my mom, and I grew up in the hood, like legit, Section 8 gangs, crack, drugs everywhere in the hood. Grew up that way until I was about 11, but I still grew up with a white mom. So even though we lived there, she still definitely spoke to us in really higher level English and expected us to speak that way as well. So she's like, I know we live around here and I know you like hang around specific people, but ultimately you're gonna have to be an adult one day and talk to people on a professional level. So we gotta start it now. So when I was 11, I moved here to Texas, and um, I experienced racism in California. You know a little bit about that. It was actually mostly from people of color because I was biracial. And my mom was definitely one of those people who got a lot of "why did you take one of our men" type of thing from other black women. It's like, oh, I don't really take them. You can have them back if you want it. Like, I'm perfectly fine with that. You can have them back. But so she experienced a lot of issues with that, and I got to the point where I was lying to people my age or kids in my age group about who she was because they would make fun of me so bad about the fact that I had a white mom. And that was something that laid heavy on me because I love my mom. She's the one who raised me. She's always been kind to me. She's always taken care of me. She's been a wonderful mom. So that was pretty hard. Then moving to Texas had like an opposite. Now it was white kids who were not nice to me. It was the first time I was ever called the N-word was here in Texas. I was in seventh grade or so. Literally just someone walked up to me like, oh, hey, guess what? You're an N-word. Like, oh, really? I am? Like, I didn't realize that. Like, okay, interesting. Anyway, it broke my heart. It really did. I cried and cried and cried because it's just one of those things that you're like, wait, that doesn't apply to me. Why would someone call me that? So growing up here in Texas in terms of like the later, more formative years was a little bit harder because it was my mom moved us from the hood in California to now not suburbs, but kind of the suburbs. So it's mostly white people, few here and there, Hispanics, few black people, whatever. It was mostly white people. So the kind of the way that I talk persisted all through high school was hanging around white people. It is what it is. And black people didn't want much to do with me because of the way that I talked and the way that I dressed and the music I listened to. And it just was, you're white type of thing. Like, well, yeah, I am half white. So thank you. I appreciate that. But it was just something so interesting to me. And I've never been able to understand is the fact that if I were to present 100% black culture, nobody would bat an eye. Not at all. Not a second would they go, huh, why is she gearing more towards her black side? The fact that I am geared a little bit more towards my white side because dun, 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 I was raised by a white woman. People seem to be like, what's wrong with you? Do you hate your black side? Like, why are you into metal or country music? And why do you like white men? It's like, well, that's half of me. So if I were doing the opposite, like following the black side, you wouldn't say anything. So it was a very interesting kind of cognitive dissonance going on in my head of like, okay, but I am two things. Why can't I be two things? So that was pretty difficult in terms of just teen years of being attracted to white men, boys, and them going, no, no, we're good. Literally, I was like, hey, what's up? Like, nope, no, thank you. I even dated, I say dated, we went out a couple of times, probably for like a month or so. But he asked me out. He showed interest in me. He asked for my number, all these things. And he had a family party one day. And I was like, oh, can I come and hang out? Like, that'd be cool. Like, why not? We're just, it's not, doesn't have to be some big thing. He goes, no, I can't bring you around my family. They're racist and you're black. So we'll just have to keep it between us. I'm like, what? I was like, but you asked me out. Like, I was black when you met me. Like, during a shot. Somehow my skin just changed. Yes, exactly. So that was a hard one. So I literally probably told him to leave me the hell alone. And
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So pretty much all through my 20s, kind of ignored by white dudes. But black dudes were very interested in me. However, the way they did it was, what's up, girl? How you doing? What's up?
that work?
No. And it was one of those, let me check you out from head to toe. And I'm like, I'm good. No, thank you. So I've had multiple, I tried a few times to date black men because my oldest brother, who was very strong, he grew up a lot in the, I guess, hood culture more so than I did. So he is very strong black presenting. And when I was about 21 years old or so, he told me that I was a racist because I only dated white guys and I hated my own kind. I'm like, we're both half white here. Like, what? How am I racist? But I was 21, and so I'm like, maybe you're right. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Like, I don't know. And so what I decided to do is like give black men a try type of thing. So I went on a dating website, which is crap anyway. And I met a guy. Well, what ended up happening is I went on one date with him, and he's like, "Hey, you want to go back and watch a movie at my house?" Well, I'm 21. At this point, I'd only had one boyfriend, no idea about dating. So hey, we go back to his house to watch the movie, but his DVD player is broken. Interesting. What ends up happening is he ends up raping me. First time I try to date a black man, he rapes me. Tried again several months later. So I'm like, okay, it was just one dude. It's fine. I'll try again. Probably like 6 months later or so. The second dude, after a couple of times of going out with him, he literally kicked me out of his apartment because I wouldn't have sex with him. And so that just belt on belt, topped with like all of the black men like treating me like a piece of meat type of thing. So it created this whole side of me of like, but do I want to know my black side? When growing up, it was, oh, I forgot to tell you this. As a child, 6 years old, I was molested by a black man, grown man. I have my black brothers who were racist towards me, and pretty much growing up, all the like violent things that happened to me were from my black side, and so there did create a thing in me of like, okay, I'm ashamed to be my white side because I'm hating my own kind, but my own kind are the ones that have done a lot of violence towards me. So growing up has been just, as an adult, it's been so hard. Like, I don't hate black people. I don't at all. I'm one of them. Like, I'm totally on this Black Lives Matter. I'm totally on the fact that institutional racism is a thing and exists and it needs to go to hell. It needs to get away from us. Like, but I also know that there's a lot of violence and cultural racism that happens. Um, black on white, like all these things. And so I have this, I don't know, brokenness inside of like, I want to support the cause, but I also want to point out the fact that there are some hypocrisy in the whole racism era because there is cultural racism in the black community. There is, period. The fact that you have 7-year-old children making fun of me because I'm half white, right? So they didn't just pick that up one day. They learned that from adults and from other kids who are also learned from other adults. So, and just seeing how people react to my husband who's white and how they react to us in public and how just both black and white side reacting to us in much the same way of just like, okay, cool, we're two different colors, it's fine, it's fine. So as of now, where I stand is 100% am a black person. I do identify as that like brown person. I identify as a brown person because I'm not fully black, not fully white. And so where I stand is right in the middle. Like, I really see that both sides have a contribution to the racism problem. Granted, black people were enslaved, forced to do all of these things, their rights taken away. Equality was not a thing like for a very long time. So I understand that the anger there, but I also understand that like when you get a chance to rise above it and you do the exact same thing the other person did to you, like that's the definition of hypocrisy. Like at that point, what are you helping? If you want this, if we want something, we have to be able to be willing to give it as well. We can't just like, give it to me, but I'm unwilling to give you back. So I would love, love, love to see the black community admit that and say, there is some bias and some racism in my own heart for white people. Granted, again, I say probably for a reason. There has been things that led up to that, but at the same time, it doesn't give you a right to have these hateful things and prejudice against people because not all white people are the same, not all black people are the same, not all Asians, Hispanics, we're not all the same. So you have to give a chance to each individual person and understand that each individual person has a different view and has a completely different, I don't know, experience. And so you also, I feel myself being a lot more patient with people who are what I identify as passive racists because most of the time they just don't know. They really don't freaking know. Like I have a couple of friends, including in-laws, who never would ever say the N-word, would never like say anything overtly racist, but it's one of those, hold my purse closer, cross the street, when a black person comes. what is Black Lives Matter? Why is it important? Why did Colin Kaepernick kneel? I don't understand that. He doesn't respect the flag or military, that type of thing.
Right.
So, but gentle education, gentle teaching, gentle like explaining, like patience. Oh, now these people have come around and they don't have that anymore. Literally, that in-law came to me and was like, now I understand. Like I was mad before with Colin Kaepernick. Now I get it. So there
Yeah.
has to be some sort of patience, and a lot of the Black community goes, I shouldn't have to educate you on how to treat me. You should just know how to treat me. It's like, no, not really. Because we live in a very, very, very racist country. It was founded on racist ideals, founded on white supremacy. So ultimately, there is an ingrained thing in a lot of people, including Black people, of how to behave, how to act, how our interactions with each other will go. And so we really have to stop and rewire our own brains and go, okay, so I thought this way. Now I have to kind of, and the only way we can do that is by having conversations like this,
Yeah.
by talking to each other, asking questions, politely asking questions. This is the same idea as somebody different than me. Like, you're a different person than me. So being able to ask about your experience, I have to ask it politely because I'm not going to be like, tell me about all these horrible things you've experienced and how I can talk to you about it. Like, that's not going to work. You could be like, okay, so tell me about, like, what did you experience? Oh, I didn't know about that. Compassion, grace, openness.
Yeah, conversation is definitely the first key. I always try to push people to do the research,
Mm-hmm.
because we aren't taught a lot about Black history, but Black history should be our history. And so pick up a book and read about Kathy Williams, read about the other things, read about LGBT, read about the Indian culture, read about, the Native Americans, read and just realize that all of that beautiful diversity is our culture. And maybe if we step in toward each other, you wouldn't feel so torn to one side or the other because it would just be one side because
Mm-hmm.
we're the same. And that is super powerful. And so obviously I know you're ASL interpreter too, or you should be teaching this professionally, by the way. You're so amazing. I watch you do. So I know you've pulled to one side or the other, but let me tell you, you're 100% awesome in my book. So um, I'll tell you, can you tell me about that culture? Like, that's another thing that where I didn't educate myself until my wife got into the interpreting piece and learning about ASL. And I learned a little bit, but I had no idea the oppression that the deaf culture goes through, or, I just can't even imagine that. And then also being a Black deaf person on top of it, I just, my mind was blown. I mean, what have you experienced just being in kind of that culture?
Well, um, it depends on where you are as to how deaf people respond to color. In my experience, and other interpreters will give you different answers because, again, it depends on the area. In my experience, deaf people have not mentioned color as an important part of their um, determining process whether they want to be around a person or not. Literally, the top is, are you deaf or hearing? The next one is, can you sign? That is what they value first. Deaf and hearing to identify, are you just like me? Or are you somebody who empathizes with me or understands me? And then, can you communicate with me? Those are the two things that they care about. Now, you will find some racist deaf people because there's racists in every single people group, but you're going to find that way less. Though I have heard this from multiple deaf Black people to know that it's probably true, that enough of them have said it, is more often than not, when they try to associate with people of color that are not deaf, the hearing Black people usually write them off. No, I don't want to deal with you. Like push them to the side to the point where they have to now join the group of deaf people, which deaf has no color, it has no country of origin, it has no ethnicity, it is just deafness, period. And so a lot of times you'll see a lot of Black deaf people in groups of large groups of white people because they're deaf, not because they're white, but because they're deaf, and that's what they have in common. And so it becomes more of a communication thing than it does a color thing. But like I said, there are racists in every single people group.
And that's so sad that we compartmentalize ourselves and make ourselves into, into smaller groups and segregate ourselves to go, well, I don't communicate like you, so even if we're the same color, I'm going to cast you aside. Or, I'm saying instead of having these kind of conversations, just casting each other out because we don't have the same beliefs. I mean, it's okay if we don't believe the same, but I think we need to learn to be respectful. So thank you for bringing all that up. Let me ask you this, Erin. What do you, being this crazy 2020 and the plagues of, I think we've had 20 things by now. I don't know what's next, but it could be killer robots or something. Oh wait, no, that
Meteor.
you just watch. Yeah. What do you fear? What do you fear?
That is a very good question. Not a whole hell of a lot. And here's why. Because I grew up in the hood, gunshots, crack, like almost died multiple times.
Mm.
A story I forgot, almost got stabbed when I was a child because of racial things, right? So in terms of like that thing, I don't fear things like that. What I fear is that we'll just keep cycling back to this like, years and years and years down the road. And if like Kyle and I, my husband and I have children or a child, whatever, I don't I don't want them to have to experience the same crap that we're experiencing. Now, if racism persists in like little bits, it's the progression. We can get better. But if it stays exactly the way it is going forward, I'm like, I don't know if I can handle that, man. It's just too much. People are so angry. Like compassion, please. That's what I desire. But I guess what I fear most is like a lack of unity in our country or in just us as people. Like you said, I love what you said. Is that if we recognize the beauty in diversity, we can all become one people, and that's what I want. But I'm scared that people don't want that as much. They would rather have their groups, their segregation, their sides of town. So yeah.
Why do you think that's so important to people?
Sameness, there's a theory, not a theory, I guess it's a scientific fact in psychology called homogeny, the whole idea that we're attracted to sameness. So a
Mhm.
lot of times that goes with like romantic relationships. So you're going to end up finding somebody who looks a little bit like you because in our DNA level, that makes more beautiful offspring. I don't know because we look the same. But ultimately, what ends up happening is that you desire what looks like you because it's comfortable and it's safe and I know this. This looks like me. This talks like me. This sounds like me. I'm comfortable. So it's a comfort thing.
I
And
must
I
be
think
broken. I like completely different. You know, I married way up. So,
yo.
and my wife way up. So, I mean, and I like, if you're not like me, I'm always fascinated to find out more. And I think that's what we gotta like find out how to push that button in people to go, it's okay if like somebody doesn't act like you, look like you, talk to you, go talk to them and find out something. You'll learn so much from somebody that's not exactly like you. But I think people like they get this truth and they're like, this is my truth, this is my bubble. And if I talk to you and you start to increase my bubble and I have to give that truth away for a new truth, I get uncomfortable. And so I just stay in my shell instead of coming out and going, I can do better, I can be better, I can know more. You know, I think people get scared and that's okay. I mean, that's just, I think that's hardwired in. We just got to re-hardwire people to embrace what is different and go, that is just so awesome, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I was actually talking to a coworker of mine who is very different than me, and I've given him space to actually just like tell me what you think about it. I'm not going to get mad. Just tell me what you think. Like asking about Black Lives Matter, asking about even Corona, COVID, whatever, a lot of things, and he just will word vomit to me and go, "Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that." Well, the more I say that, the more he wants to talk, and the more his conversation is changing. So it's an idea of just like letting people talk sometimes, even when they're ignorant, because sometimes hearing out of their own mouths what they're saying and someone not getting mad at them, going, "Oh," makes them go, wonder. So it got to the point that like I let him talk several times in a row, and I said to him finally, I was like, "Do you care about what I feel or what I think, or are you just going to talk at me?" He goes, "Oh, well, I'm sorry. Like, okay, what would you tell me? What do you feel?" I'm like, "No, I want you to come to me on another time when I'm not putting it on your radar. You come to me when you're ready to hear what I have to say." It hasn't happened yet, but that was just like a week ago, so we'll see.
Yeah,
But
that's awesome.
but that's the thing is like I I desire for him to know a more free life of, because here's the thing is when people are so angry about holding on to those truths, angry, it's not freedom in that because if you have to angrily hang on to something, it's not right for you. If you
Mhm.
can hold on to something but also let it go, but hold on and let it go, that's freedom. Because I mean ultimately nothing is permanent. Everything's in flux, everything's gonna change. So just being able to let go a little bit. And what I told him is like, listen, because I asked him, I said, did you live in the same house growing up? Were your parents married? Did you go to the same high school, like all 4 years? These type of questions. He goes, yeah, yes, 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 to all this. He goes, are you going to say it's white privilege? I'm like, no, exactly. It's the exact opposite of that, actually. I'm not going to say anything about white privilege because that has nothing to do with white. That has everything to do with stability. Having two parents in the house, having like consistency, that has nothing to do with white because you can get that in Black communities, you can get that in Hispanic communities, you can get that in Asian communities. And so I ended up telling him, I said, my challenge to you would be that you talk to people who do not look like you, do not sound like you, did not grow up like you. Just talk to them. Ask them questions about their life and listen. That is it. You do not have to change the way you think. You do not have to change your opinions. You do not have to change any of that. Just listen. Because the more you listen, the more you're going to realize that these people are just like you. You're just like you're all. So that's my hope and my challenge for people. So I'm going to be a lot more patient with ignorant people than a lot of others because I'm like, I know that kindness and compassion and grace really does do a lot more than anger, way more.
That's right. Man, that's very powerful, Aaron. And I feel the same way. I know when, people come at me and go, well, you're gay, but I'm going to ask you questions. And some of the questions, I would just want to say, oh my gosh, this is so ridiculous. But I always answer them because I feel like if they're coming to me with questions, then their box is ready to grow a little bit. And they might not like the answer that they get, but they're ready to receive it. And so I need to work on grace and patience, as I think that we all do, is, have that patience for somebody who comes at you. And I've had long conversations offline with people that I've known for 20 years that we don't agree, but we have the conversations. I'm like, hey, I still love you. Like, we don't have to agree. It's okay. You told me your
Yeah.
way, told you mine, but it's, I love what Bruce Lee said, and it is in the Zen as well. The Tao symbol, the black and the white. There's a lot of lie in the black, and there's, the opposite is absolute truth in the white, but in the middle where they meet is the truth, is the real truth. So, it's just we got to get there. We've got to get to the middle and the Zen and come together as a nation. And I don't know how we do that. This is my small little way to try to have these conversations, and I hope that it inspires people to other people to have conversations and just go, hey, where are we going wrong? And we heard earlier in an interview that was the same, that there are a lot of African Americans that don't trust whites, and
Hmm.
I've heard that a few with coworkers are like, automatically you're white, I don't trust you. I said, fair,
Hmm.
that's fair, because I take that word from you a lot. That's fair, but um, let me earn your respect and show you that we're not all the same. Because if I can do that, then maybe for the next one, you'll be a little bit more apt to give respect or give a little bit of trust. And I said, I totally understand where you're coming from. You're the expert of your experience, but I
Mm.
am the expert of mine. So let's try to work it out. And it's actually worked out very, very well for us. So
I
Aaron, I
love
know
that.
we're getting close on time, but I want to thank you so much for sharing your
Mhm.
story, and you got me. I had some tears a little bit, so very, very powerful. Thank you. And to those watching Connect Empowerment, I think that is what we take away is, even when you don't feel part of one or the other, and someone who's gone through so much as Erin has, she still has that grace and compassion and love. And we really got to get back to love and kindness. Even if we don't agree, it's okay. Like, just getting rid of people as family and friends is not going to help. If they're really, really racist and they're hard set on that, I will absolutely drop you. But if you're somebody that we can work through with it, work through with it. Just go in love. You don't have to agree on everything, but please try to understand the other person's perspective. Be kind. I actually have a model called Connected. It's a script on how to have those hard conversations. Of course, that's an acronym because I was Army. I love acronyms. So if you're interested in that, reach out to Connected Empowerment LLC. That's what we do, is try to help build the bridges and build the team. So thank you, Erin, for what you do. I appreciate you. Connected Empowerment. Until next time, we'll see you then.